Hey everybody, it's Daniel here from Mobile Syrup, and of course this phone needs no introduction, but I will introduce it anyway because I'm just as excited to use it as you are to see it. This is the Google Nexus 4, the fourth phone in that storied line of pure Google experience devices. Now, this is obviously the best, but it's obviously the best not exactly for the reasons that you might think. Not only is it a faster phone, it's running a newer version of Android, it's got a lot of bugs that are worked out, but it really is a statement from Google. It's saying, we can provide a phone for $300, $350 unlocked that will work on hundreds of carriers in hundreds of countries across the world, and we can do it all with the exact same experience. So this is something that has never been done before. While, obviously Apple sells their phones unlocked in many parts of the world, they're $700, $800. This you can purchase for $300, $350 in a select number of countries. It's going to be increased in the coming months. Obviously the Nexus 4 sold out in minutes because it was so popular. So hopefully by the time you see this, there's going to be more stock available. But let's take a look at why this phone is just as exciting as it is. So, as you can see, it's a pretty regular looking black slab. It looks very similar actually to the previous regular looking black slab that Google released last year, the Samsung built Galaxy Nexus. However, turning them over, you see the huge difference in the design lineage. This is LG's crystal reflection backing. You can see it's made custom for the Nexus line with that awesome, beautiful live wallpaper style backing here that looks random in different parts of the light. The Galaxy Nexus, in contrast, really looks boring now. It's not that well made. It's all plastic. It feels very flimsy. While I had no issues with the build quality, it did not come with Gorilla Glass, so it was prone to scratching very easily. It was very easy to hold in the hand, but again, the Nexus 4 is more compact. It's much easier to reach the top of the screen with your thumb, despite its 4.7-inch screen, and it's just a really well-made device. There's glass on the front and the back, which has been a concern for some potential buyers because obviously the iPhone 4 and 4S had that, really bad history of having glass break, and I see people walking around the city with broken iPhones all the time. So hopefully the Gorilla Glass 2 on here is going to be a bit more sturdy over time, but again, be careful. Buy a bumper, buy a case if you're that worried about it. So let's take a look at the device. We have a power button on the right side. We have a volume rocker on the left, 3.5mm headphone jack and a microphone on top, micro USB middle on the bottom. There's these two, it look like pentalobe screws here. So, that's actually going to keep you from messing with the phone. The battery is internal. iFixit and Anintech took apart this phone and found that it wasn't too bad. The battery is user replaceable if you know what you're doing, but it's not ordinarily user replaceable, so keep that in mind when you're purchasing this. There is a 2100 milliamp hour battery in here, so the battery life, especially because this is an LTE device, and we'll get to more of that in a second, is respectable. It's still not a great phone for long-term use. I think the Motorola HD is probably the Razer HD rather is the better bet there. But Android 4.2 does some things to improve battery life, and because this is not running on the LTE network, battery life has proven to be pretty good. So when you're thinking about putting in your SIM card, you actually will use a little pin that comes with the phone, and you just take out your SIM card slot. This is unlocked. It's it's a pentaband, so it's got support for, and I could be wrong here, 850, 900, 1700, 1900, and 2100 megahertz spectrum. That means that it'll run on Rogers, Bell, Telus, Fido, Koodo, whatever in Canada, but it will also run very well on AWS networks such as Wind, Mobilicity in Canada, and T-Mobile in the States. This is not compatible with CDMA networks. That means this cannot be used on Verizon or Sprint, but very few networks outside North America still run on those aging CDMA networks. Let's turn it on. let's take a look here. If you scroll to the right, I showed you this in the hands-on preview. You get to the camera. Now what I didn't show you was the ability to use something called Photosphere. Now Photosphere is a way to stitch your kind of 360-degree view together, and it does this by aligning where you are shooting. Now you can't really demonstrate this on camera because the camera is stationary, but basically you see what I'm doing here. I'm just scrolling around on a single axis. That's the best. That's the way to get the best results. And obviously, when you're done, you just, well, actually, I haven't actually aligned it to start yet. So the basic idea is that you can get very seamlessly stitched together using Google's advanced, Google Earth type algorithms of a 360-degree sphere, and you can upload this to Google Maps, Google Plus, and a number of other places. So it's really cool. I'll show you some of those results in the review, but this is a great feature. Now we also have an 8-megapixel camera here, and it takes 1080p video. If you touch the screen now, that's going to give you access to that quick settings bar. Now Android 4.2 is all about those subtle improvements as well. So what you'll see is kind of similar to that camera feature. If you hold down, if you slide down from the notification bar with 2 fingers, you actually get the quick settings menu right away, as opposed to scrolling down, seeing your notification shade, and then pressing the quick settings button. Now this is interesting because what it does is it does give you quick access to things like Wi-Fi, cellular data, brightness, for example, but it also allows you to quickly get into the main settings part here, which is really where you would make the biggest changes to your OS. So you have things like language and input, you have your battery. You can see here I've been using it quite heavily today. I'm at 46% after 3 hours. I've made a bunch of calls. I've used Chrome, I've used Twitter. So today's been a pretty busy day, and you can see I'm already down to 46% after 3 hours. So you can deplete this battery very quickly, and I'm sure battery life is going to be a concern of everybody involved here. You can see I just got a Twitter notification. This does, Android 4.2 expands on the expandable notifications support as well, but apps specifically have to support it. Now, what else Android 4.2 brings to the table is lock screen widgets, and you can scroll to the left and you can see that you can add lock screen widgets here. So if I go and I want to add, say, a digital clock, I can do that. And when I scroll to the right, or sorry, when I scroll to the left, we can see that I've added a digital clock. Now, HD Widgets is a third-party app which is integrated into the Android 4.2 framework that can provide its own lock screen widgets. So you see here, you actually get third-party support, which is amazing and something that that has a great potential without impeding on your experience. So the home screen looks exactly the same as you're used to in Android 4.1, even Android 4.0. Google hasn't really changed a lot here. Accessing Google Now is still a swipe up, but what's interesting is that if you take a look here, you can see it's asking me if Google or Maluba wants to be used for this action. So Google is actually allowing third-party apps to integrate right into this framework as well. So by default, I can do Google Now, but I could also choose Maluba. One thing that Google has added to Android 4.2, if you don't want to choose always or just once, you can actually just double tap on a specific icon in your default app screen, and it will bypass that. So it'll ask me to do it again if I go back now, if I just double tap on there. So it's the same feature as if I were to press Maluba and then go just once, but it does it a little bit faster. So Android 4.2 again is all about these subtle improvements. Now I'll show you exactly what I mean here. Say I'm going into Google Now and I press the multitasking bar or the multitasking button. You can see that nice little animation, how it zooms out and keeps its orientation right on there. That's a new feature in Android 4.2 and it looks fantastic. So that's really kind of appreciated. The other thing that Google's done a really great job on is just keeping performance up. This phone never slows down. It's absolutely amazing. It's running a quad-core 1.5 gigahertz Snapdragon S4 Pro SoC, huge GPU, and you can see, yes, this is an e-reader app, but it's just absolutely smooth, no stuttering whatsoever. Really, really nice. Let's see what the speeds get on HSPA. Now, this is running on Rogers HSPA Plus. I'll do demos on dual cell HSPA Plus with Bell and Telus, but let's just see what we get here. So, again, this is not an LTE phone. You won't find performance that's anywhere near LTE in the upload, but I'm getting 9 megabits a second down, and I got an amazing 40 millisecond ping, and this is on an HSPA Plus network. So, you know what? People are complaining that it's not an LTE capable device. That's fair, but I'm still getting ridiculously good results for an HSPA Plus device. Remember, devices just released last year only supported up to 14.4 megabits. So this is a huge improvement over those, and something that you're not going to want to overlook, especially because this is an unlocked pentaband phone. You can take it basically anywhere in the world and have it work on the carrier's 3G network. So what else do we have to show you? Obviously, the keyboard is something that is a nice addition. We've shown you that before. So if I were to say go into Google and I want to search for something, I can hold it down. So I'm going to say hotel, and it'll come up with certain responses. Google is now Chrome rather is now the default browser on Android 4.2, just as it was on Android 4.1. Not a lot of improvements here. Now, what's interesting though is that Google Gmail rather does not support pinch to zoom like it did in the leaked versions of Android 4.2. We're not sure when Google's going to update it, but it'll probably mean that it's going to be backwards compatible with older versions of Android before 4.0 plus. So while everybody was thinking that this was only going to be compatible with Android 4.2, it does seem that Google has yet to actually push out the update, and it will be compatible with Android 4.1 and 4.0. Other things I found was that the speaker quality was, it's not great. It's not bad. It's a bit muddled. So let's dial voicemail, and we'll see.
Welcome to Rogers Wireless Voicemail. Bienvenue au service de boîte vocale de Rogers sans fil.
Now I found the same little kind of muddiness on the Optimus G, and I don't know whether this is due to the calibration of the baseband or whatever the reason is. It's a little bit fuzzy when you make calls, so keep that in mind. It's not the best for making calls. Everything else seems to be pretty good. The camera, again, it's not the best in category. Nothing here is the best in the category. You can see here that you can actually expand your music when it starts playing, and I can use 2 fingers to show or expand that. So that's really nice, and then I can actually exit out of that, and there you go. So Android 4.2, really, really nice additions. But again, the screen's beautiful, viewing angles are excellent. It's not as vibrant as a Super AMOLED screen, which is fine, but it does seem a little bit muted by contrast, and I actually prefer some, looking at certain things on a Super AMOLED screen. That being said, the viewing angles are far better here, and the power output is actually a lot better on the Nexus 4 than it is on a Super AMOLED display. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But at the same time, you're only paying $309 or $340 or $359 for this phone. They have had to cut down price somehow, and obviously certain things have gone by the wayside. You don't have LTE, even though there is an LTE baseband in here. The quality of the buttons isn't quite as high as the Optimus G. So when you run your finger over the power button, it feels a little bit cheap. It kind of like crinkles in under your hand. The rubber on the side doesn't feel very premium compared to the Optimus G, and this chrome on the front here is really, really plasticky, and I don't love that. I wish that it was an actual metal band. That being said, the backing is absolutely gorgeous. This is one of the nicest backings I've ever seen on a phone. The screen is amazing. Speeds are phenomenal. It really is one of those all-in-one, all-rounded great phones that you want to buy even as a second phone. If you're a frequent traveler, if you just go to the US every once in a while, you need to get a cheap plan on T-Mobile, buy this phone when it's available. It's $300. I know it's expensive for some people, but what I mean is that you're not committing to any plan here. You could buy this without signing a contract for $309 plus tax, and you have a second phone on hand. But I would recommend using this as your main phone. If you're on Wind or Mobilicity, this is the phone to buy. If you're on Rogers, Bell, or Telus, I could see why you'd want to go with an LTE phone, but then you miss out on those over-the-air updates. You miss out on having the newest version of Android all the time, and you miss out on the experience of the developer community. If you're an Android hacker, this is by far the best phone to get. This is going to be supported for at least a couple years. You saw the Nexus S, which was released in December 2010, just stop receiving updates. So it took about 2 years before it got eliminated, and it'll still live on in the developer community. People will build Android 4.2 and beyond for the Nexus S for many, many years. So the Nexus 4 right now is the phone that I would recommend to buy. It is the phone of the year, in my opinion, for no other reason than the fact that it just brings down the price of affordable unlocked phones by so much, and it sets a good precedent for the rest of the industry. And it'll put pressure on carriers to actually reduce the outright prices of the devices, because clearly Google is subsidizing this. But at the same time, if this catches on and people choose not to buy carrier locked devices as a result of the Nexus 4, the industry is going to be shaken up severely. And yes, LTE is an impediment to that, and that's how the carriers are going to encourage you to buy their own stuff. But if you can live without it, and you saw those speed tests, this is the phone to buy. So this has been a look at the Nexus 4. It's available, or it will be available when it comes back in stock on Google Play. Buy it for $309 or $359. Unlocked, pentaband. Use it anywhere. Use it everywhere. This has been Daniel from Mobile Syrup. Thank you for watching.